No HVAC contractor gets into the business to deal with insurance. But if you want jobs and if you want to grow and scale without exposing yourself terribly, you got to buy it. You got to buy the right stuff. So in this video, we're going to get into what you need to buy, starting with the very beginning and then progressing to what you need as you grow and scale. Let's get into it. The first policy you'll buy is general liability insurance. It protects you if your work causes bodily injury or property damage to other people or organizations. It can happen on the job site. That's called premises liability. And it can happen after the job is finished, and that's called product and completed operations liability. It also includes personal and advertising injury. So for that, think libel, slander, or ad disputes. Now, with HVAC, the biggest general liability claims aren't leaks. They're CO incidents from bad venting or flues or pool heaters. It can happen from fires from hot work like brazing or soldering. And it can happen from refrigerant or pressure events that damage property or injure bystanders. Knowing these patterns helps you decide your coverage limits that you want to buy and where not to cut corners. Now, if you work for GCs or municipalities, you'll be asked for specific contract wording on your certificates of insurance. They'll be looking to be added as additional insureds for ongoing and completed operations. They'll want primary and non contributory language. They'll want waivers of subrogation and they'll want per project aggregates. You need to read that language before you bid and make sure your policy truly matches, or you'll be eating mid job endorsements and delays. Now, just for clarity, I want to dig into some things that general liability insurance does not do. It is not going to cover injuries to your employees. That's workers' comp. It's not going to cover your tools. That's inland marine coverage. It's not going to cover your stock. That's property insurance. It's not going to pay to redo your faulty work. That's typically excluded. It's also dicey whether it's going to pay for monoxide leaks because there is a pollution exclusion on a general liability policy. And if you're doing design work, there's an exclusion for professional liability insurance. So it's just important to know that general liability insurance does not do everything. That's why there's different coverages you need to look at. The second policy you'll think about as you get started is contractors equipment coverage or tools coverage. We call it inland marine. This covers the tools that you throw in your truck and you take to job sites. Now, a couple of misconceptions that need to be corrected. Tools are not covered by general liability insurance, and tools are not covered by your auto insurance policy. The right coverage for them is inland marine. It protects your gauges, your vacuum pumps, recovery machines, power tools, ladders, even that $8,000 coil lift against theft, fire, or accidental damage when they're off premises or in transit. Now, as you grow, you'll also want an installation floater. That covers equipment that you've purchased, like a condenser or furnace or air handler that sits in your shop or on your truck until it's installed. Many contractors miss this one, but it's critical. And don't forget rented or leased equipment if you're using lifts or temporary gear from a rental house. One pro tip: many policies have a per item limit, say $1,000. If you own high value equipment, make sure it's scheduled separately so you don't get shortchanged on a claim. Soon enough, you'll be thinking about commercial auto insurance. That truck you've been driving in your personal name, once the business owns it, you'll need the right policy. Here's the number one trap: the title and the policy have to match. If your LLC owns the vehicle, the policy has to be in the LLC's name. If the truck is still titled personally but insured under the business, coverage can be denied. Always make sure that ownership and insurability line up. Next, limits. Don't cheap out here. $1 million of liability insurance is the industry standard, and it's where the biggest claims happen. A bad accident with injuries can bankrupt you in a small HVAC shop. For the vehicle itself, you'll want comprehensive and collision coverage, plus towing and rental reimbursement, because when your work truck is down, job stop. Now, here's some of the cost drivers. Drivers with bad records equal high premiums, so screen MVRs before you hand over the keys to your trucks. The radius, the farther you drive, the more risk. Territory. Dense cities with theft and accidents cost more. And where you park the vehicles, same thing. If you're parking them in areas with high crime or metro areas, you're going to pay more. And don't forget hired and non-owned auto liability insurance. That is liability coverage that sits on top of your employees' personal auto insurance if they run errands in their personal vehicles. Bottom line, treat your vehicles like the lifeline of your business. Protect them properly and manage your drivers like you manage your installs. Once you've got your truck and your business set up, the next step is usually hiring, and that means you'll need workers' compensation insurance. Here's what you need to know: most of your people will fall under an HVAC technician class code. If you hire an office only admin, they can go under a much cheaper clerical class code. As the owner, you can usually make the decision whether you want to cover yourself or opt out. And here's a big one: it doesn't matter if you pay someone on a W 2 or a 1099. If you are paying them and they don't carry their own valid workers' compensation policy, you're going to be charged for that exposure at audit. Always collect certificates of insurance from subs and make sure it lists workers' compensation too, not just general liability insurance, or plan to pay the premium for those guys. Now, let's talk about where the biggest workers' comp claims come from for HVAC contractors. It's falls from ladders or attics or rooftops, electrocution from live circuits or rooftop units, burns or explosions from boilers or pressurized systems. And in the summer, heat stress is a big one. So, your job as an owner is twofold: prevent injuries through safety training and toolbox talks, and prepare for what happens after an injury with a return to work program. Carriers look very favorably on businesses that have both. So, bottom line, workers' compensation isn't optional. It's a legal requirement in Maryland, and it's the policy that protects your people and your business from the most serious HVAC exposures and accidents. Most HVAC contractors start out of their house, which is why I wait until later to talk about property insurance. In the beginning, you probably won't have much, maybe a laptop, a desk, and a few tools in the garage. But as you grow, you may rent space in an industrial strip or even buy your own building. And that's when property insurance becomes essential. Here's what to think about: you need to think about the building itself if you own it, in which case you need to think about how much it would cost to rebuild it. You'll probably know a few things about that. You'll need to think about the contents inside of the building: desks, computers, parts, inventory, refrigerant, copper, all that. And then business income and extra expense. That part pays your bills and even payroll if a fire or theft shuts you down. Now, one big misconception to address: your homeowner's policy does not cover business property. If your garage catches fire and you're storing $20,000 in HVAC parts, homeowner's insurance isn't going to pay. And so don't forget the real HVAC exposures: copper and refrigerant theft, catalytic converters stolen off of trucks parked in the yard. Now that's auto insurance. And fires in shops with tanks or flammable materials. If you're renting, your landlord will almost always require proof of property insurance for your contents and your liability insurance. Bottom line: property insurance protects your shop, your inventory, and your cash flow, so one bad loss doesn't wipe out years of hard work. Once you got your trucks in a business name and a crew in the field and maybe even a shop, it's time to think about an umbrella policy. Do you really have enough liability coverage? There are two main reasons that HVAC contractors buy umbrellas. One, somebody requires it. Municipalities and general contractors will often say no job site access until you carry a $2 million umbrella or something like that. Or you recognize the risk yourself. If you're working in a multi unit apartment building and a gas leak or leads to a fire or CO deaths, your $1 million general liability limit won't go far. An umbrella policy sits on top of your general liability insurance, your commercial auto, and your employer's liability policy. It provides extra layers of protection when a really big claim blows through your primary limits. So, for HVAC businesses, the biggest umbrella claims often come from CO incidents, fires from hot work, or auto accidents involving multiple injuries. Most umbrella policies are sold in $1 million increments, and many contractors will carry $5 million insurance or more. The cost per million is usually low compared to what you pay out of pocket on a catastrophic claim. So, bottom line, an umbrella is how you make sure one disaster doesn't end your business. Now that we've covered the basics, let's talk about some specialty coverages you should consider as your HVAC business grows. Contractors' pollution liability. Your general liability policy excludes most pollution claims, and courts have treated carbon monoxide, refrigerants, and fumes as pollutants. That means a CO leak or ventilation failure could be denied under a general liability policy. Pollution liability fills that gap. Professional liability. General liability insurance also excludes professional services. So if you design systems, do load calculations, or integrate building automation controls, you should consider errors and omissions coverage. Employment practices liability insurance. So once you start hiring, you open yourself up to claims of wrongful termination, discrimination, or harassment. Whether they're true or not, you'll spend money on attorneys. Employment practices liability insurance pays for defense and settlements. Crime and client's property. Crime coverage protects you if an employee steals money, cash, parts, or even refrigerants from your business. And client's property coverage protects you if a tech steals from a customer's home or job site, typically something that general liability insurance will exclude. Cyber liability insurance. HVAC contractors are increasingly connected to vendor portals, remote thermostats, and municipal systems. If your credentials are hacked and used to access a GC's or city's network, you can be on the hook. Cyber pays for data recovery, liability to third parties, and even business interruption if you're locked out of your systems. These aren't day one coverages, but as your business and revenue grows, they can be the difference between a bad day and the end of your business. And that's everything you need to know about HVAC insurance. Hey, if this was helpful and you want to talk to me about your program, my contact information is in the description and it'll also flash up here on the screen in a minute. If it was helpful, please hit like and subscribe. It helps other people like you find the content, or drop comments, ask questions. I answer all of them. As always, thank you so much for watching, and please go build something great.